Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltesiak, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast, part of the Minute Media Podcast Network. This season, it's all grit. I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players, gaining more insight on what makes this team go. The Detroit Lions are now in a new, grittier era, and we look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. Welcome to another episode. In this episode, we talk about the trade everyone was waiting for the Detroit Lions to make and how we think that will impact the team. Of course, we're also going to preview the Detroit Lions Week 10 matchup as they head back out west to visit the Houston Texans. That and more. Let's get to it, Lions fans.
This is Mike McMahon, and you are listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
Joining me today is Coach Jerry Angers, former Michigan High School Coach of the Year, as well as Coach of the Week by the Detroit Lions, and current Scouting and Training Director for Bull Rush Sports. Coach, good to have you here.
Great to be here, fellas.
All right, and joining us is James Cook, the senior sports writer for the Traverse City Record Eagle. You can also hear him on the Get Around podcast. That drops on Mondays. James, good to have you here too.
Good to be here.
Well, guys, not a lot of time has gone by since we last spoke and did an episode, but a lot of stuff has gone by, or at least a big thing has gone by. The trade deadline passed. The Lions get Zadarius Smith, a guy you guys have been talking about for a while. We've all kind of had our eye on. The Lions get Zadarius Smith and a 2026 seventh-round pick. They are trading away a 2025 fifth-round pick and a 2026 sixth-round pick. And so that kind of goes right in line with what James was saying he thought the price range should be. In addition to that, the Browns have already paid most of Smith's salary for this year as well. So that's going to really help keep things cap comfortable for the Lions. Here's Coach Campbell talking on the addition of Zadarius Smith.
Like I say, I was able to put eyes on him a while back, certainly like the player, feel like he fits us, will bring something that we feel like complements the other players in that room. He's going to play the run. He can get an edge still. He finishes on the football. He's tough, violent player. And so we're excited to have him, He'll be good for us.
All right, James, we all three of us were in agreement. We did not need a Max Crosby. We weren't looking for an Aiden Hutchinson replacement. We were looking for somebody starting caliber talent, maybe a Marcus Davenport level guy to help bring things up due to injury decimation. Talk to me about this move and all the nuances with the trade and all that you see and what you like, or if there's anything you don't like about it.
I'd like pretty much everything about it. Basically only giving up a fifth round pick. The Browns' seventh is going to probably be early in 2026 and our sixth is going to be late. So, you're talking maybe a swap of 5 or 10 picks or something in that. So that's almost negligible. So you basically a fifth round pick. We've got Smith is a nice fit. I think he's a good fit in the locker room. I think he's a great fit in what they do schematically on defense. He's the base end that we talked about where he's 270. He can play on the early downs, play against the run. And his contract next year is not prohibitive for them to keep him. And then just have a defensive end to pair opposite of Aiden Hutchinson next season. And maybe draft somebody to get some depth, if you lose some guys or whatever, but they don't necessarily go into next year's draft having to draft a defensive end high.
That makes a lot of sense. Kind of like the Carlton Davis move this offseason. We still drafted someone high, but it provided some stability in that spot. Now, Coach, what does this do for the team? Bringing a guy in like this, Campbell already said he's tough, he's violent, we're excited. He's going to be able to play the run. He can still get the edge. Because that's the thing. We've talked about the lack of maybe sacks, and we wanted more of a pass rush. But this can help with the rush defense, which is a critical component to this Aaron Glenn defense. So what type of player are the Lions getting in Zadarius Smith, and what do you like about this?
Well, you got a 3-time pro. You got a guy that's played for 2 teams now, 3 teams in the North. His motor's always running. I mean, the tape doesn't lie. Granted, he was on the opposite side of a pretty good defensive end over there in Cleveland, so probably took a little bit of pressure off him. But the things that I enjoyed the most when they kept talking about this was seeing interviews from his teammates and nothing but praise about the leadership, in the locker room, on the field. And he's a big brother. He's always trying to help them. He's as hard a worker as any of them. He's always trying to get better. And you got a veteran like that with, he's been in all these different systems. He's going to be able to pick our system up early. I know, I'm not sure if you guys heard that, he won't be back in Detroit till Friday because this was supposed to be their bye week. And again, that's the Detroit Lions coaching staff. Dude, this was supposed to be your bye week. You're a veteran. You're a great football player. Hey, we'll see you on Friday. And I was listening to JJ Watt today about, he said DNs are plug and play, man. See ball, get ball. He said it's the easiest position. That's why he switched over from tight end at Central Michigan to become a D tackle in Wisconsin. And hearing stuff like that, that on Sunday, this guy, from everything you're reading, seeing, hearing, is going to have a splash play or two for us on Sunday, and definitely going to help our defense.
Yeah, great call on the move by the coaching staff right there is, just one more way to endear a player to your team and your culture is recognizing all the elements in the trade and what that player is going through. He's got to move to a different city, and it's going to be a short week. And, he was supposed to be on a bye this week as well. And we know it's a long NFL season.
At Kroger Pharmacy, CARE is making it easy to get vaccinated. CARE is helping you stay protected from flu, COVID, and RSV. Seasonal vaccines are available 7 days a week with evening hours. CARE is giving you a shot at staying healthy this season. Walk in whenever is best and get multiple vaccines in one visit at your local Kroger Pharmacy. So come and get the protection you need while protecting those around you. Kroger Health, a world of care, is in store. Visit Kroger.com/vaccines for more. Restrictions and exclusions apply. See site for details.
This is a story of the one. As a maintenance specialist for University Housing, he knows college students can major in wear and tear. Plus, housing so many students doesn't leave a lot of room to house all the supplies he needs. That's where Grainger comes in. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast, dependable delivery, Grainger carries the quality products he needs so he doesn't have to. From a new door hinge to a whole new faucet. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Well, guys, I think this move lines up exactly what we were looking for, right? It's not that, Brad Holmes did exactly what we wanted, James. He didn't give up vital pieces in the future for this year, but he also didn't stand pat and say, hey, we're just good enough. Now, interesting enough, Dan Campbell was asked if there were other moves they were trying to make, and he said he would rather not get into that, which means, you know what? The answer is probably. I'm sure they were looking at lots of things. But this doesn't mean that the roster is finalized. We know that. If you paid any attention to last year's late season moves, the roster was always in flux. Now, they got Isaiah Thomas off the practice squad from the Browns a couple weeks back. They just traded for Zadarius Smith. There are other practice squad players the Lions could still look at. There are other veterans that could get released. James, you brought that up before, that's something that could happen. I mean, if we look at transactions this week with the Lions, we know that they waived a couple players earlier in the week. They brought those players back and signed them to the practice squad as we were expecting them to do. They also put Ezekiel Turner, linebacker, back on the practice squad. I believe he was on the practice squad earlier at this point. I could be wrong on that. And then obviously Jameson Williams got activated as well from the reserve, the reserve suspended list. So they're going to keep moving that roster around. They only have one more elevation on one of the players from last week, so that'll be interesting to keep an eye on. If he's got to compete this week or not, if they elevate him. But the good news is there's some reinforcements that are coming. Coach, what does this do for the rest of the team, knowing that, hey, they opened the 21-day practice window for Mosley and Iffy, and our secondary is looking pretty good right now. And Broderick Martin, I think, is in that 21-day window. And then there's some other guys that, again, could potentially be coming back. Pascal and Rodrigo might be this week. It might be next week. But you got some other pieces coming back. So talk to me about that.
Well, I think it's again, now our depth is coming back. Now that the competition is just gonna tenfold it. It's almost back to preseason, and you start adding these guys back, and these guys that are on the roster, and these guys that are getting elevated. Now all of a sudden they're going, oh boy, I better pick up my game a little bit because some of the dogs that have been in play have been around. So I think the Iffy is a huge one for us because I think that helps us with safety. I mean, the guy started a ton of games for us last year, and now all of a sudden he comes back with the safeties that we have, and I think he can play in the box and stuff like that. So defensively, it's just going to open the playbook up for AG, and so. And again, we came up with a little acronym the other day, and it's nice that some of these letters are going to be leaving, and I might have to come up with a new one with the guys that are back, but our AI would have to come up with a new one. So I just think it's huge for us to see that because especially Broderick, we were looking forward to him this year because he transformed his body like McNeil did, and we wanted to see what he picked up because he had some splash plays. So. And again, Pascal, I think, for sure. I mean, I saw 2 or 3 things. We'll have Pascal on Sunday. Sounds like, for sure what Campbell said. And again, putting some veterans on that D line and veterans in the back end is really going to help.
All right. And James, I mean, a lot of guys that could come back, you're not Davenport, Hutchinson, and Barnes are not coming back. I mean, there's that far off thing potentially for Hutch, right? That people talk about. But those guys are lost for the rest of the regular season. And so, and I guess Kaminsky could be a guy that could come back in late December. What are you seeing about these potential guys that could return? And does this bode well? Does this give hope for that stretch, that late stretch? And what is it that you're hoping to see out of some of these guys, or where could they make an impact?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, they also got good news that they Emmanuel Mosley and Iffy, they both started practicing and were have given the practice window. So they're supposedly supposed to both be ready by Thanksgiving, maybe sooner. Broderick Martin practiced in full on Wednesday, so there's a possibility he could play this week, but probably the week after that for sure. And Kai Wingo practiced today too. So that's another defensive lineman that we could be getting back, and Sion Vaki as well at running back, who didn't play last week, was a full participant this week. So yeah, they're getting guys back. They're luckily haven't lost any new ones recently, aside from to a suspension. And I think Rodrigo could be back this week, maybe back the week after that. Pascal sounds like is going to play this week. He had a non-cancerous mass removed that they found in that checkup from his cancer that he had when he was in college. But that's seems to be behind him now. So they're getting a lot more pieces for those coaches to be able to play chess with.
Well, that's exactly it, right? And then that just gives them more guys to shuffle in to adjust to the scheme, and gives you hope that you get some reinforcements back, because we have a long second half of this season to go yet before you even think playoffs. All right, before you think playoffs, we got to think Houston. That's where the Lions are traveling this week, going out west. Here's Coach Campbell talking about those Houston Texans.
I mean, look, they've got a lot of young talent that they hit on, and it's funny because most of those players over there are all players that we really were high on too, and so when you see that and you see some of these players, you're like, man, that was a good one. That was a good pick they got there. And you see how hard they play and the type of football players they are. And so I do think there's a lot of similarities, and they're like anybody else. They've had to go through some injuries and stuff this year, and they're battling through it, and they're still one of the top teams in this league. So they're finding ways to adapt and continue to win. So it'll be a challenge.
All right, Coach Campbell never minces words. He always gives the other team a lot of compliments, but I think they're well-deserved. I mean, the Texans are 6-3 right now. They most recently lost to the Jets. Before that, they beat the Colts. Then they lost to the Packers in a close one before that. And so I guess we got to start with Houston's offense. C.J. Stroud, the rookie sensation from last year. He's having a good season, but he hasn't looked quite the same as last year. Now, there could be a variety of reasons for that. one of which his top 2 targets have been banged up. Nico Collins has only played in 5 games. Stephon Diggs is now out for the rest of the season. The run game, they got Joe Mixon as their lead guy. What are you seeing out of this offense, Coach, from some of the film you've been looking at so far?
Well, I think let's talk about who's leading the offense or who's leading the team, and DeMeco Ryan. Okay, and again, we got to talk about him as a head coach. He played linebacker in the NFL. Was a defense coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. Now he's a head coach. What does he sound like? He sounds like Dan Campbell. The guys play for the guy because he's played in the league. He's been around. And I've always liked him. And, look what he did with them last year, and look what he's doing with them this year with those banged up injuries. So, I just think that's something to point out. And, he's going to have them ready to play for us because he knows this is a great stepping stone. I think his interview the other day or yesterday, maybe I heard was, hey, this is a great measuring stick from us. This is a great football team coming in. So, but from their offensive side of the ball, granted, he is missing his top 2, and Mixon's a good back. He's kind of regenerated his career, but the offensive line is giving up 31 total sacks this year, second in the league. Last week against the Jets, they gave up 8 sacks and 11 quarterback hits. All right. And the other part of it is too, the interior line, the inside, they've given up, of those 31 sacks, they've given up 20.5 sacks, which is most in the NFL. So, those are, if they sure that up, they're going to give, him some more time to throw the ball. And I mean, he's a great quarterback. He's running the ball now. He can move, he can make plays. He's one of those guys we really got to keep in the pocket. And we have to make him doubt that the offensive line is going to play better this week. We have to put this pressure on him nonstop. We have to bang him around because it's been going on and on and on. So we have to add to that. You get 11 quarterback hits out of him this week. He's gonna start going, I don't really like this too much anymore. We got to put some doubt in his mind. And I think the biggest thing, and we're going to talk about our interior guy, okay, McNeil. All right, McNeil's got 24 quarterback pressures in the last 4 games. He's tied for 8th in the NFL. Okay. First. He's tied for first amongst all D tackles. And he's tied with that guy from the Chiefs, I believe, who's not really good. So, I mean, he's in some great company. And so those are things that, McNeil should have a big game. I don't remember what the pressures we had last week on McNeil, but and now we have this edge guy that's just going to see ball, find ball, tackle ball. And we're going to have him coming in there, and with Pascal and stuff back, and hopefully Rodrigo could go. Things are starting to look up for us. So we're getting healthy, knock on wood, at a great time. So, but great offense. He's good, but we just got to put the pressure on him, and things will be in our favor.
All right. Well, James, let me ask you a little bit about the offense. Tank Dell is still a good receiver, and he's probably become the go-to guy on their receiving core at this point. They've got some contributions from Dalton Schultz, the tight end. And what are you seeing out of the offense? What are you seeing out of CJ Stroud specifically compared to last year? Again, his play isn't quite as dynamic. I think he got banged up recently. I don't know if that's contributing to things. And so what do you think the Lions are going to have to look at from this offense to be prepared for?
Yeah, it's interesting that he kind of hasn't taken that step you expect a starting quarterback, especially one who had such a good rookie season, to take in that second year. He's still a very talented quarterback, mobile, not a guy who runs a lot necessarily, but he's mobile. So he's not just not just standing there in the pocket and an easy target. He can move around. With Diggs and quite possibly Nico Collins out, he's still on injured reserve, and they haven't activated him yet off of injured reserve. So we'll see what they do in the next few days with that. They're going to have to rely on a very young set of wide receivers in Tank Dell, Xavier Hutchinson, and John Mechie to be their receivers, and probably a little bit more on Dalton Schultz than they have early in the season. He's kind of been like a little bit of an afterthought in this offense after having a really good season last year. Yeah, their offensive line is decent, but yeah, the interior of it's not very good. I think this could be a game where Lee McNeil could really just feast.
Yeah, I mean, Coach even talked about it. We've seen how good Aleem has done, and this could be a great opportunity for the Lions to get more of a pass rush on there, especially if Smith is playing. We get the new addition in there. But again, if there's some weakness on that offensive line, that could be good, especially with getting Pascal back as well. But Houston's going to be an interesting position on offense because they're going to have to try to run the ball against the Lions in this game, I think. And I think Mixon's going to have to be part of their game plan, not just an accessory or a complement to the passing game. I think for them to be successful, they're going to have to get him to run. And he's averaging 4.8 yards a carry. He's got 6 touchdowns. He's got 5 explosives with a long of 59. And if you look at their offense, the numbers aren't bad. They're actually 11th in rushing and 13th in passing for yards. And that's going to have to happen for them to be successful against the Lions. But with this Lions defense, I don't know that that's going to be able to happen. I mean, Coach, think about the Lions secondary right now. They've only gotten better every week. And if we're looking at talented receiving cores, this is on the lower end of the talented groups we've seen due to the injury impact on that. So what do you think an AG and is going to kind of dial up for a game plan? Or what are the things that the Lions are going to do? You already mentioned getting that pressure up front, kind of like James did. What else do you see happening from here?
Well, Collins is cleared to practice. He didn't practice today, but he's cleared. So, I think we're going to, he's got that in the back of his mind to get ready. Last week we had to get ready for 2 quarterbacks and we did all right. So if Collins comes back, that's a good thing. I think AG is going to dial up, keeping them behind the sticks, behind the schedule. And if they are going to try to establish the run, that second down is going to be a 2nd and 9 or 2nd and 8, where we're going to get them to that 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7 to where they have to pass it and try to turn McNeil loose. And I think that's one of the things, if Smith, Smith plays and gets a ton of reps with the guys that we've had, we also got to remember with Pascal coming back, that's can move Levi down inside, in passing situations. So now you got Levi and O'Neal tearing up that interior. That interior O-line. So that's what I think AG is going to go after. He's going to stop the run. We run base defense more than anybody in the NFL for that reason, because he wants to do that. And of course, after that, we're going to press you. We're going to man you up. We're going to stick on you. And don't look now, but the people that were doubting Arnold and told that we should have benched him a few weeks back. You guys, everybody remembers that. Oh, we should sit him and let him learn. He's one of the best shutdown corners in the last 3-4 weeks. Look at the numbers. And so that's what AG is going to do. We're going to stop the run, get him behind schedule, and then turn the dogs loose up front.
All right. Well, here in the base defense stats, I mean, that's got to be music to James Cook's ears, because I swear for about a year and a half, that guy was like, the Lions only run nickel. They only run nickel. And we finally see him running base. And I think a big part of that is they've got the personnel to do it, and they're stopping the run. That when they stop the run, that gives you one more bonus to make the other team one-dimensional, and it allows you to have them play into your traps. So, James, talk to me about stopping the run and how big of a deal you think that is, because I think that's something you've kind of pinpointed where the Lions need to kind of re-improve on.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, that about Aiden Hutchinson, people don't guess, because he's such a good pass rusher, it gets overlooked how good of a run defender he is as well. So missing him, I mean, the last 3 weeks without him, their yards per game that they've given up on the ground has gone up from 83 to 145. 83 per game with Hutchinson, 145 per game without. I think Zadarius Smith will add to that, will improve that area. Gives them another big defensive end who they can play against the run. If you got him and Pascal on the ends on run plays and your big defensive tackles in there, that's an incredibly hard 4-man front to run against. So I think that should help immensely. And then they've got the other guys coming out the bench, Thomas, Muhammad, Houston, Nowoski playing a little bit there on the edge, too. But and then eventually we'll get Rodrigo back here pretty soon, and that helps the run defense even a little bit more.
All right, and I'm not going to disagree with those things. And yeah, That's the other thing too. I think the Lions have gone a long time not allowing an individual to rush for over 100 yards, but collectively teams are getting over 100 yards now, and that does change the dynamic because that's what a successful team does. They can do both. And the Lions, they're one of those successful teams. They can do both. They are 7th in overall offense, 6th in rush offense, 15th in pass offense, and again, we know they'd be higher in pass offense if the special teams didn't do so well against the Titans, okay? And maybe if the weather was just a tad better and the Lions didn't have a lead last week. But that being said, Jared Goff, 1,800 yards passing, 14 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, a rating of 115. And the running game, they're both on average or on pace to hit 1,000 yards. That was really close to happening last year. We just missed it. They're on pace for both to hit that. David Montgomery's got 4.4 yards a carry. Jahmyr Gibbs has a disgusting 6.4 yards a carry on 103 carries. This isn't like he's carried the ball 20 times this season and he's just a gadget guy. Like, he's a legit load carrier, and he's averaging 6.4 a carry. And so let's start talking about the Lions' rush game, I guess, the rushing attack, because, well, I mean, the passing attack is going to be back as well because you got Jamison Williams to go with St. Brown. Coach, let's start with you. What do you think? Is it going to be more rushing attack, more passing attack in this one? I mean, if you look at Houston's defense, Coach, they're number 2 in total defense for yards, number 12 rush defense, and number 3 pass defense. So what are you expecting out of this?
It's so funny because every week we kind of go, all right, they're gonna establish a run and then they're gonna throw the ball and Johnson does such a great job of putting us in situations to have positive impact and to have big plays and to have explosive plays. We're gonna establish the run as always. Okay, but he may establish passing first and then come back to the run, And again, they do such a good job with formations and motions and how many guys are in the box. If we're +1 in the box on the offense, we're going to run the football. Okay, if we're down, if we're -1, we're going to throw the football. And I think that's the stuff that each week they're going to do, and that's going to that's Houston's going to dictate by the percentages and stuff. I think I had some percentages on there. I threw some. I got to remember which ones they were, but on what their front looks like. So that's going to determine what they're going to do. Whether we start passing right away or start throwing right away, or just kind of come down and run an 8-minute clock right away. So it's fun to watch because you really never know what Johnson has, and it's he does. I think they use the analytics as good as anybody.
Oh, I agree with that. I think they often don't get enough credit for that as well. And you're right. The way the game goes will dictate things, right? The weather and the lead in Green Bay dictated, hey, let's lean more on the run. They can't really stop it. Let's decrease the chance of a variable switching the game around. James, what are you thinking the Lions offense can do against this Houston defense?
I think that their defense is exploitable. Their defensive line has been pretty good this season, especially the edges. But they're going to have to go against the best offensive line in the league, I think, arguably. They've got a couple of injuries, guys that are on the injury report, and so they could be missing a linebacker and a safety. The guys that they have behind those are a couple of the lowest rated guys in the league at their positions by PFF. So I think that there's definitely some places that they're going to be able to target on this defense.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And, the wide receiving core continues to gel and get better every week. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do. And especially, again, it should be good weather conditions for this. And so that also lends itself to the funnest show on turf. Okay. And I think the Lions are going to bring that here. Special teams. James, any thoughts on special teams before we move into any major storylines or anything unexpected?
Well, I mean, the special teams have been pretty rocking the last few weeks. I expect more of the same. And You could even see a little bit more of Isaiah Williams maybe as a returner. We saw that in the preseason, and now that he's healthy, he can add some depth there as a returner and as like the number 5 wide receiver, which I think probably could push Allen Robinson back to the practice squad, and you get Jamison Williams back. I mean, that's going to be huge for the offense as well.
That it will. Coach, special teams, any thoughts? Just Jack Fox does what Jack Fox does, and Bates does what Bates does, and what are you thinking here?
Again, Fox is going to flip the field, and that's the stuff that's going to help us, with these short drives. If we have some long drives, it'll be kind of nice to see what happens with it. But I just think he's such a big, huge weapon for us, no matter where we're at. So, and then Bates is going to have, I think he's going to have his longest field goal this week. I just have a feeling that they're gonna push one to push him into that 50s and see how he does. So, one thing I want to point out, one thing too that I remember Coach Ryan talked about. He said that the Lions have such a great ability for explosive plays after short catches. And he pointed out St. Brown and he pointed out Gibbs, and he said we need to tackle well and limit these. So, so that kind of tells me defense, what we talked about the offense wise, that kind of tells me they're going to kind of, maybe play some more cover 2 concept or some deeper drop concepts to give everybody and keep them in front of us so that they don't get these big explosives. So just wanted to throw that in there because I think that's what, Coach Johnson will end up attacking and try to get some of those, whether they go over top of them or underneath and try to, probably a trick player too also.
Yeah, and again, if they get the look and if the situation dictates it, it's interesting to know that they're always on, right? The play's always there if they get the look and if the situation's dictating it. So, man, they honestly are revolutionizing football, I think, the way they call offenses over here. So let's talk about some of that revolution. Coach of the year, player of the year. We're hearing these things thrown out there. Let's start with Coach of the Year, Dan Campbell, a candidate for it, but some people are going to say the Lions are just too good. He's doing what they should do. And here's my theory on why Dan Campbell is not going to win Coach of the Year. He should have won it 2 years ago when the Lions went 9-8 and beat the Packers on the final game of the season. And I contend he would have won it that year had Seattle beaten the Rams. Is that what it was? Seattle had to beat the Rams, or the Rams had to beat Seattle, vice versa?
The Rams had to beat Seattle.
Yeah. If the Lions had gotten into the playoffs that year and won one playoff game, Dan Campbell is your Coach of the Year. And somebody else did something like that. I don't know who. Somebody else got Coach of the Year. But it was an incredible turnaround. That's the year he should have gotten it. Because sometimes it seems the Coach of the Year is like, oh, well, the team wasn't supposed to do good, and they did good, so now they get the Coach of the Year. I mean, Dan Campbell should get Coach of the 3 year. It should be Coach of the 3 year, because you look what he's done in 3 years, all right? And this is year 4 right now. So I think it's going to be the same issue we might get to with Jared Goff, the syndrome. Well, he's got all this talent on his team. Of course they should do well. And so, James, you get to vote for Coach of the Year. You get to do that, not at the NFL level, but at the high school football level. And so what are some of the things that you think make somebody a good candidate for Coach of the Year? And then we're going to get to a former Coach of the Year and get some insights from him on this. And do you think Dan Campbell has a shot, James? What are your thoughts on this stuff?
I think he's got a shot. I mean, getting to the big dance is always a big thing. So if the Lions could get to the Super Bowl, I think that right now you've got a lot of people, their mid-season Coach of the Year is Dan Quinn because of how he's turned the Commanders around.
Right.
And hats off to him. I mean, they've done a great job there. But they've changed the whole culture there. They've changed the front office. They changed the coaching staff. They've changed a lot of personnel, reminiscent of the Lions a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the people that's kind of ahead of Campbell. Everybody's talking about Dan Quinn. And then there's always Andy Reid. The Chiefs are still undefeated. So he's going to be in that conversation too. I think the Lions getting to the Super Bowl will put Campbell more into the forefront of that conversation.
All right, that makes a lot of sense, and I agree that would be that next level. That'd be the level the Lions have never reached. So ultimately, you have to put him in that conversation. I mean, I think pretty much everyone in Michigan thinks he should already be there. Coach, you've been the recipient of this award before. What are your thoughts on all this banter we got going?
Dan Campbell's thoughts or my thoughts, and probably about the same. Who's going to remember coach of the year 12 years from now? But who's going to win a Super Bowl champion? Who's going to be the Super Bowl champs? Who's going to remember that or where they got to? So that's Dan Campbell's thoughts. Should he be? Yes, no doubt in my mind. I think 3 years in a row, like you said, is no doubt in my mind. But in Dan Campbell's mind, he would rather see coordinator coaches of the year, as his coordinators deserve it, because he knows without the people he surrounds himself with, he would not be able to do what he does as the best leader in the game. So, it's great. Those awards are great. Kudos. It's awesome. But from a coaching standpoint, championships, T-shirts and hats, and your coordinators getting those awards is the biggest thing ever. So that's what Dan's is, and that's what I feel.
I completely agree with everything you said, and that is the reason, just one more, that he should be coach of the year, right? It's not his priority, which, again, I don't think it's most coaches' priorities, but the fact that he cares so much about all the other people in his organization. And we see it's being reciprocated. We saw Jared Goff say, hold on. Coach, here's your game ball, right? Is Jared Goff a potential player of the year? I know Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry are, I think, two leading candidates up there. But what Jared Goff is doing at the quarterback position has rarely been done, James. And, it makes it even a more complicated discussion of who's better, Stafford or Goff, right? I mean, and they've got their own attributes, and I don't even care who's better overall. I guess we've said it multiple times, they're the two best quarterbacks the Lions have had in the last 50 years. Jared Goff, though, I mean, we've already talked about he's ascended to a new level. He has continued to get better. There's something about him that he's motivated, he's hardworking, he's dedicated, and he's doing things incredible. I mean, we had that streak, was it last year, where in the year before, we had so many passes without an interception, and he's really fixed the turnovers. He's completed 31 passes between him and St. Brown, 30 to St. Brown, 1 to him. What are you seeing out of, is Jared Goff a realistic candidate for this? And how the heck did this happen?
I think for sure he's a candidate. He's up there. I think it was the NBC Sunday night post game show last week where they were doing their mid-season awards, and one of the three guys that they had there had Jared Goff as his MVP. He was the only player from the Lions that they had winning anything in any of the categories or whatever, but he had Jared Goff as his MVP. I mean, I think it was Aaron Rodgers this week had a comment about Jared Goff, of all people, saying that quarterback is not an easy position to play, and he is making it look real easy, which is pretty amazing at the NFL level. He's, like you said, he's been minimizing mistakes, all the things that people criticized him for the first few years of his career, and that they ran him out of Los Angeles for, he's fixed. He performs well under pressure. He handles the blitz better than any quarterback in the league. Got the turnovers down, winning on the road, winning in bad weather. Those are the only knocks on him.
Coach, I mean, Goff can't scramble. Okay. I mean, he can't. I mean, I know he's taken the over like 3 times on the rushing yards for this season, but that's the big knock on him. I mean, Coach, you remember that conversation you and I had about should they trade him for Lamar Jackson and 2 first-round picks and, take on that contract, and we were just like fool's gold. I mean, nothing against Lamar. He is amazing, but we appreciate Goff. But James is right. I mean, Goff was far from perfect when he got here. He was far from perfect when he left Los Angeles. But we saw flashes, glimpses of things. How does a player improve like that? I know that the talent around him improved. So I got 2 questions for you, Coach. 1, How does a player improve like that? And two, what do you say to the people who say, well, of course you can be MVP when you got Gibbs and Monty and St. Brown and J-Mo and Laporta? If I had those guys, I'd be the MVP, which I don't believe. But what do you got on those two things, Coach? Improvement and his supporting cast.
Well, I think the improvement thing was him being dumped and shipped away. He's good enough to be our quarterback, as Dan Campbell said. And I think what he's done with his game, and Lamar's done the same thing. Lamar was always a running back playing quarterback. Well, now he's a quarterback that can run. He's throwing the ball on. I think that's the same thing with Goff. Those guys, when you start talking about those guys, Patrick Mahomes, there's just a huge list of them that they continue to make their game better, to make their team better. And that's what Goff has done. And I think he's taken all that. Oh, you're telling me I can't throw in the rain? Let's go. You're telling me I can't run for a first down? Let's go. And I think that's what he's done. And he's a student of the game. I mean, Campbell said it time and time again, that he's always there. He's always picking. He's always working. He's always doing those extra things, like any professional that wants to be the best at his position. And so that's what Jared Goff has done. That's why when we talk, because we're biased, that we believe he's the MVP. Jared Goff, he believes he's going to win a Super Bowl. Again, we're saying he's another one of those guys that doesn't care about it. Our social media drive is so big on this, and Lamar running around and doing all these things. Lamar ran around 2 weeks ago and didn't complete the pass and lost to Cleveland. Okay. I mean, he was dancing. Unbelievable. And I'm not knocking him on it. What I'm saying is, and then Mahomes the other night jumps forward, hurts his foot, gets carried off the field. He's in the blue tent. Oh my God, the season's over with. He comes jogging out and leads them back to the game winner. And so the buzz is, and the social media is, oh my God, you see what he did? Oh my God, we did. Jared Goff's MVP. What he's done with this team, what he's done with himself. But again, he doesn't care if they say he's an MVP or he's a Super Bowl champ. You ask him which one he wants. The ring don't lie.
There you go. I mean, hey, just go back to that touchdown pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown against Green Bay last week. I mean, amazing catch, amazing pass, amazing combo. I think we said it a lot earlier this year and a lot last year. Goff to St. Brown all day. And that just shows you the ability he has, the accuracy, and the leadership. All those things come together. I appreciate that, guys. James, let's get back to this game here. You've got the ref report for us. What are we expecting? Who are we going to see?
Yeah, the Lions get the Bill Vinovich crew. He's been a NFL ref for 19 years, 16 as a head referee. This season they've called 54 fouls on the home team and only 43 on the visitors. So that bodes well for the Lions, who are on the road this week against Texas, or against Houston in Texas. One of the things that they call a lot is false starts. In 8 games, they've called 25 already. It's the most common thing that crew calls. Then they've also called 16 offensive holding and 12 defensive pass interference. Really 15, because defensive holding is basically the same thing. So after that, everything kind of drops off. He called the Lions divisional playoff game last year against Tampa Bay, in which the Lions only had 3 penalties the whole game. So that bodes well. And he was the head referee in the 2018 NFC Championship game, where Rams corner Nickel Roby-Coleman railroaded the safety, the Tommy Lee Lewis from the Saints, and completely didn't get called for what was maybe the most egregious pass interference of all time. Ironically, both of those guys would later have a cup of coffee with the Lions.
I wonder if Coach Campbell will have a cup of coffee with Bill Vinovich before or after the game. Say, hey, here's some coffee. Let's make sure we don't miss anything. All right. Appreciate that breakdown there, James. Okay. What's it going to take for the Lions to win this game? Coach, let's start with you. What do you think? What will it take for them to win?
I think, again, defensively keeping them behind schedule. just keeping them behind schedule, and then offensively, us having some big splash plays, some explosive plays. Getting JMO a big catch early to get him into the game, to get his head right. It's been 2 weeks. And I think those are some of the things that we have to do with that. And again, if Collins and them are playing, we got to make sure CJ is not off his mark, and make sure CJ doesn't get out of the pocket and throw those passes on the run that he can do. So, and then, we should be in pretty good shape. One thing, you realize this is our 4th road game in the past 5 weeks. Our 4th road game in the past 5 weeks. So, which is awesome, because we played pretty well on the road, and here we come.
Coach, I think the Lions are going to have to stop the run and avoid miscues of their own. I think that's what's going to take for Lions to win. Those are going to be like my big things. If they can do those 2 things, that is going to significantly increase their chance of winning this game. James, what do you think? What's it going to take for the Lions to win?
I think they have to establish the run game. They have to continue to not turn the ball over. They've done that so well this season. Fumbles have been few and far between. Interceptions have been really low by Goff. So that's just given them a huge advantage in the number of possessions. And you give Ben Johnson a couple extra possessions more than the other team, and that's going to be bad news for the other team. The Lions are 3.5-point favorites in this game on the road. So I think that's something that the people are expecting them to do.
I think so as well. If you want to look at a few more stats here, one thing we haven't talked about, but something jumped out to me, is red zone efficiency. The Texans defense ranks 30th in red zone efficiency, where the Lions are 4th in red zone efficiency. So Lions pretty good at stopping teams in the red zone. Texans have faltered there. On offense, the Lions are 8th and the Texans are 15th. So tells me the Texans have a hard time finding the end zone when they get down there on the field, and we know that's a strength of the Lions as well. So, Coach, prediction time. Something you think is going to happen in this game. It can be the score, it can be a player, it can be a thing, anything you want.
That closer we just picked up is going to get a sack, and McNeil's going to have 4 to 5 quarterback hits this week.
Okay. All right. James, how about you?
I think Jamison Williams has a long touchdown in his return from the suspension. It's got a lot of juice in those legs after taking 2 weeks off.
Nice. I like that. Predictions here. I have 2. 1, I am predicting that a Lions defensive back will get an interception in this game. I'm going out there, because so far it's been the safeties and the linebackers, right? So I'm thinking a defensive back is going to get a safety in this game. I had one other prediction I came up with, but I can't think of it. What do you got, Coach?
A pick, not a safety. One of the corners is going to get a pick. I like that call.
Yeah. Like we have the safeties. The safeties have gotten interceptions, and the linebackers. But I think a defensive back will pull off one in this game. So I'm gonna call that. And again, I can't remember what the other one was going to be. I had one other prediction that I'd come up with, but it must not have been that good a one if I forgot about it already.
Well, you can think about it. I got to tell you, did you guys see the Lions on the kneel downs and stuff? The offensive line and Goff and all those guys laughing and giggling together. Did you guys all see that? They're all kind of sharing a smile together. And
are you talking about the end of the Green Bay game?
At the end of the Green Bay game, yes. Did you guys see that? And
yeah.
They asked Goff about it, and I don't know if Goff's reply was, one of the guys over on the Packers said, "We'll see you again. We'll see you again this year." And Goff looked at him and said, "Yeah, we play twice a year. Every year we're in the same division." I love it. I can't see Jared Goff talking smack. Not that it was a big smack talk, but that's Goff's brain concept where, yeah, you're right. We are going to see again. We play twice a year, every year. We're in the same division. I just love that stuff. So
that's nice. It wasn't like he was saying, "Hey, we're going to see you in the playoffs." It's like, "Oh, we're going to see you again because we play each other."
Yeah.
All right. Hey, one final thought to quick touch on before we get out of here, you guys. We do have a couple minutes we can still use. Is where the Lions stand in the NFC. Right now, they're 7-1. They've got the best record. The Commanders are 7-2, winners of 3 in a row. Philly is 6-2, winners of 4 in a row. Atlanta is a team that might be sneaking up on some people. They're 6-3. They've won 2 in a row. And again, you don't want to, we're not the coaches, so we can look at things 2, 3, 5 weeks out. The coaches are going to look 1 week at a time. But if you look at Atlanta's schedule, they play the Saints, the Broncos, the Chargers, the Vikings, the Raiders, the Giants, Washington, and Carolina. I mean, I don't see many of those teams getting much better. There's 2 or 3 tough games on there, and it's the NFL, so any game can be tough. But what I'm getting to is, I know this is an AFC game, and I know every game matters. It's only that one in front of you, but that number 1 seed is going to be a coveted seed in the playoffs, and I think, every game's going to matter. And I know we talked maybe 11-6, 12-5. Hey, 13-4 might be what it takes to get the number 1 seed in the NFC. James, what are you thinking about that? And I see Atlanta and probably Philadelphia as being the 2 toughest. And Washington made a trade for Lattimore. So, and you never know who's going to surge out of the West. The Rams are putting some football together. And Christian McCaffrey's coming back for the 49ers. So the NFC is going to continue to start getting better, I think. So what are you seeing out of the NFC right now and where the Lions are sitting?
Yeah, I think Philly is one of those teams that I worry about if they put it all together. There's just with the receivers they have with Saquon, Hurts at quarterback, like they've got what can be a very, very dynamic offense as well. And same thing with Atlanta. Kirk Cousins at the beginning of the season didn't look very good, didn't look like he was completely over that Achilles injury, but now he is just zipping the ball all over, and they've got weapons. They've got Bijan Robinson. They've got a 2-headed running back attack like the Lions. So I mean, they need to win these games and stay ahead of everybody, get that number 1 seed, and show people how difficult it is to play a playoff game in Detroit.
Yeah, I mean that would like a lot of us were watching that Green Bay San Francisco game last year in the playoffs and just thinking, what if the NFC Championship game comes through Detroit, right? Coach, I know the Lions can play on the road and win on the road. You just got done talking about that. It's 1 game at a time. We got to just get playoff eligible, right? That's the first thing. And then it's win your division. And then you let that stuff, take care of itself. But, from a perspective of the outside, you're not on the team. You're not running the team. What are you seeing out of this? I know it's a long season. A lot of variables are going to happen between now and then. But, you like the Lions odds more getting that home field. What are you thinking on these other teams? And we're about the halfway point. So what's your perspective?
All right. Well, so from a fan standpoint, that's what you asked. Okay. I think one of the things we look at, this is our 4th road game in the past 5. So I think that's huge for us. If we can get this one, that's another road victory. We'll have 8 wins. We've lost 1 game at home. And so all we have to do is take care of home field advantage, plus maybe win another 1 or 2 on the road from there is going to be huge. I think we're in good shape, even though we play the Vikings and the Packers again. We do have them at home. And so, we have to try to sweep. It's tough. It's tough in this division. We talk about that all the time. So I think we're in pretty good shape with that. I mean, we do. I think we had last week, we had the 2nd toughest schedule for the remainder of the year, if I believe. And I think Chicago had the number 1. I can't remember where I read that, but I think that was 1-2, or we were right up there. So
Yep.
The nice thing is Washington and Philly and those guys, and they got Washington, they have to play each other, but the Falcons are scary. And like you said, Kirk Cousins is doing a great job. So I think we're in good shape, especially with these 4, these playing all these road games in a row. We can really build up some steam and get some separations over the next few weeks with all the home games coming up. And from a coaching standpoint, hey, if we're 1-0 this week, we're still the number 1 seed, boys.
Exactly. 1 week at a time.
Yep.
James, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I think the Lions win this one. They stay perfect on the road for the season, and then it's on to hosting Jacksonville.
Coach, how about you?
No, I'm good. I can't. Looking forward to this, especially with CJ and going against uh, Coach Ryan, who I just think he's doing a lot of great stuff down in Houston. And I think they're coming out in red uniforms. Houston is so. Hopefully, we go
Bright
all white
red.
with that bright red, aren't they? Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
that. So that's gonna be kind of cool to look. It's too bad we couldn't wear our blues or something, but so it'll be fun to see them come out in that, and just hopefully we get a W out of this one.
Yeah, I don't know if we'd wear the all blacks on the road, but man, that would be a look. It's prime time. I would love it if we came out in one color for sure to match their all reds. I think that would be great. My final thought is a random one from a couple of weeks ago. I was looking at their schedule when you mentioned all the road games and stuff. I'm still blown away that the Lions put up 52 points and Jared Goff only threw for 85 yards. Like that stat right there. I want to know when the last time a team scored that many points and their quarterback threw for less than 100 yards in a game. That's a head scratcher.
Yes.
Coach, James, thank you both for being here. Folks, thank you guys for tuning in and listening to us. You can find more episodes and content at notthesameoldlions.com. Please tell your friends about the show. Tell your family. Like, comment on socials. Subscribe regardless of your listening platform. And until next time, stay gritty, my friends.
At Kroger Pharmacy, CARE is making it easy to get vaccinated. CARE is helping you stay protected from flu, COVID, and RSV. Seasonal vaccines are available 7 days a week with evening hours. CARE is giving you a shot at staying healthy this season. Walk in whenever is best and get multiple vaccines in one visit at your local Kroger Pharmacy. So come and get the protection you need while protecting those around you. Kroger Health, a world of care is in store. Visit Kroger.com/vaccines for more. Restrictions and exclusions apply. See site for details.
This is a story of the one. As a maintenance specialist for university housing, he knows college students can major in wear and tear. Plus, housing so many students doesn't leave a lot of room to house all the supplies he needs. That's where Grainger comes in. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast, dependable delivery, Grainger carries the quality products he needs so he doesn't have to. From a new door hinge to a whole new faucet. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.